Hey folks, Dr. Rob Jones here, heydrrob.com. So, just got done practicing for the day and had a really interesting case. Pretty high level runner who had come in with a pretty bad lower back problem that ended up being a disc related issue. Really a lot of what we've been talking about with our previous videos ended up being the cause. If you think about running technically, okay, running, you're up in this position, right? Your spine is in that good lordosis. Again, my favorite word in the English language, lordosis, okay? Like previous videos, I've killed this word because I've said it so much. If you're in lordosis, your spine's gonna be okay, period, the end, unless there's impact from a trauma or something like that, clearly. So anyways, this guy comes in and he's got a pretty bad disc bulge. Really classic symptoms, hurts when he sits, hurts when he flexes, but he doesn't have any pain when he runs and walks, which is good, but you know, he doesn't want to hurt when he sits, so that's why he kind of sought me out. So the interesting thing is his physical therapist had been telling him he needed to stretch his back, okay? How had he been doing that? He had been bending over, he'd been touching his toes while he had been sitting, he had been rounding his spine forward, taking his spine out of lordosis, doing this. He had been lying on his back, pulling his knees to his chest, lying on his back, rotating to the side, basically doing what I call backbreaker stretches. So we're going to talk about that mechanism and why they work temporarily, but they do not work in the long run. So quick review. Again, we take Mr. Spine here, and as we talked about in previous videos, lovely lordosis right here. Your back is in this position. Probably not going to hurt, okay? Even if you have a disc bulge currently, you keep it in that position, that disc will draw back in. When you get out of lordosis, like doing a lot of sit-ups, and that actually ended up being what had hurt this runner as he had been doing some of what I call backbreakers. And again, future videos, I'm going to cover all of this. He'd been doing a lot of sit-ups, a lot of crunches, a lot of Russian twists, and a lot of bicycle type crunches to strengthen his core, because everybody's got to have a strong core, right? Well, I'm here to tell you, if you're doing that stuff, you might get your core a little stronger, but you're breaking your back down. So anyways, he'd been taking his spine out of lordosis, had been flexing it out, doing a lot of crunches, bam, ended up with a disc bulge. And again, if you want to see what that looks like, here is, again, if we can get this working for the camera, here's front right here, here's back right here. When you do a sit-up, you get on your back. Let's get you here, there we go. Well, let's just do it bending, say. So if you're bending forward to touch your toes, you squeeze the front of that disc and you push the fluid straight back. And right there, pow. That's what a disc bulge looks like, okay? So he had one of these. So he had been stretching it because his back felt tight. Well, let me explain the mechanism of what causes back tightness when you have a disc situation. Okay, so as that bulge comes out, as you can see right there, okay, it actually pushes on the spinal cord. This yellow thing right here is the spinal cord. Well, a couple of different things happen, okay? Again, if we draw the disc like we did last time, I'll do a little bit bigger so we can see it a little bit better. We're looking top down now. This is the front, and this is the back right here. It's a giant jelly donut, right? Okay. Here's our jelly, and this donut portion is the ligament called the annulus fibrosus, and it runs in rings all the way around the disc, and here's our jelly right here. Okay, now there's a couple of different types of nerves that give us sensation to these discs, okay? They're proprioceptors, which I'll explain in a second, and nociceptors. Nociceptors are what signal pain back to the brain, and that's what makes you ouch, okay? Now, we have the richest amount of nociceptors and proprioceptors out on the edge of the disc here. Now, as this bulge worms its way down, or as this nuclear material, as I say, or as I should be saying, worms its way down here, okay, it's going to create a disruption in the annulus fibrosus, that ligamentous ring, and you're going to end up with a bulge, okay? Again, we've got spinal cord right here, okay? So whether or not it's touching on the spinal cord, what's going to happen is those pain receptors and those proprioceptors are nerves that communicate, that we have them all over our body. Those nerves communicate signaling back to the brain about the position of our body in time and space, okay? So if I took a random person off the street and I closed their eyes and I bent their wrist down, I said, what direction would your fingers be pointing right now? And they would say, well, down at the ground. And the reason they know that is because the stretch receptors, also known as mechanoreceptors or proprioceptors, in the wrist and the skin and the muscle tendons, ligaments, joint capsules, they go up through the nerves, through the spinal cord to the brain. The brain recognizes, well, whether that's a threat or not. If the brain feels like that's a threat, what it's going to do is it's going to create a contraction in the opposite direction to mitigate the threat, okay? When you're walking along and you happen to trip, okay, but you catch yourself and you don't fall over, what that is the proprioceptors in your ankle told your brain something bad was gonna happen. So what your brain did was it sent a really fast signal back down to those structures to contract certain muscles so you wouldn't fall over. Now that same exact mechanism happens with the disc. So what's happening is as that disc is bulging, it is sending proprioceptive signal and pain signal up to the brain. Okay, I'm a terrible artist, so let's just make a little happy face. Well, let's make an unhappy face here because this person's in pain. So poor guy, he's sad. Okay, here's the brain right here. Okay, it's going up through the spinal cord and the brain is going, oh my goodness, we've got a problem with this disc. What should we do? What we should do is we should make an efferent signal back to all the big muscles on the side of the spine, and we should make them really tight. And the reason the brain makes those muscles tight is because those big thick muscles right here that run along the spine, if you palpate your back right now, you can feel them. It's like big hunks of meat back there. Basically what those muscles do, they're extensors, okay? They pull us backwards in this position. Now, the brain is sensing that we've been bending over too much, okay? There's a stretch on the annulus, it's opened up, that disc bulge is coming out, and the brain is going, that's not good, something's gonna happen, that's probably pretty bad to the spinal cord. So we know this is the mechanism of injury when we bend forward, so let's put a massive contraction into these muscles and let's pull the spine back. Now what does that feel like to us? What that feels like to us is we have really tightness in our back, right? So if you have a tight muscle, what do? You want to stretch it out, right? You want to loosen it up. You want to bend forward and touch your toes. Well, that may give you a temporary bit of a relief, but what it's doing when you actually bend over, it's creating another barrage of that messaging, because as you bend over, as we know from what I've explained previously and just now, as you bend, there's more pressure on the front of the disc, that bulge goes out further, signals the brain that there's danger, and then the brain, guess what? It sends another tightening signal to those muscles. So there you go. So you're creating your own vicious cycle, vicious circle by actually doing this forward tight bending. So really what we want to do is stop the offending activity, which is sit-ups, crunches, backbreaker stretches. And what we want to do is move backwards against the disc to try to drive it back in. Now, that's a whole other video, and I will get to that, but I want you to understand this mechanism. If your back is tight, please don't bend over and touch your toes, okay? Most likely, from a percentage standpoint, if your back is bugging you, you pretty much have some sort of discogenic process going on. It may not be a bad bulge, it may be just a little bit of pressure, but the amount that we sit and the amount that we flex and the amount that we're on our phones curled over, we all have somewhat of this mechanism going on. So again, let's not flex it when it hurts. Let's remember lordosis. And then follow me on all the social media sites, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Hey Dr. Rob. Check out my website. And in the next couple of videos, I'm gonna show you how to correct this. What we're gonna do is we're not gonna flex it, because again, that's gonna irritate the problem. We're gonna do some different type moves to pull that disc back in, and we're gonna get you feeling better. And most importantly, I'm gonna teach you how to protect your back.